Hey guys and girls, welcome back to our show. A seat at my table. This is Chef Sanchez, and today we're making soup. Not the creamy kind or velvety kind like we did with the butternut squash episode, but today we're making a more hearty, very Peruvian soup. So if you're a cilantro lover, if you're a soup lover, if you're a chicken lover, please don't miss this. It's awesome, it's healthy, it's filling, it eats really well as a meal itself. So come and join me in the kitchen so we can make some soup together. Alright, here we are. We're going to make a soup that eats more like a meal. It's called Aguadito, which means sort of like, it's not really the best translation, but it sort of means watered down. But trust me, it's not a watered down soup. It's full of flavor. And it's basically a chicken, and I think of, I've worked in the restaurant business for a while. At the beginning stages when I worked as a server, busboy, whatever it was, at one place we always had this chicken and wild rice soup as a special. So it's sort of like that, but with a Latin flair to it. So if you don't like cilantro, I recommend you switch the channel, because this is going to have a lot of cilantro, and cilantro is awesome. And it's different than the cilantro that you would eat like in tacos or guacamole, because it's going to be cooked, so it's going to be milder. So as you can see, we have a cool setup of different things that I already got ready for us. It's a chicken and rice soup, so we have some rice, and then there's things that are going to go in the soup to not only flavor it, but also fill us up. So we have some potatoes, we have some English peas that could easily be frozen. I'm not gonna lie to you, we have some frozen ones here. Then we have some yellow corn, it could be white corn. If you don't like corn, don't put corn. If you want to do something even cooler, like hominy, the big ones, you can do that too. We have some carrot here. Normally in Peru, we use the red bell pepper, but I found this yellow bell pepper, so we're gonna use that. And then we have some cumin, which also brings a lot of flavor, as long as you don't go crazy with it, unless you love it like I do. But normally a little bit of cumin goes a long way, so we have some of that. And then we have Peru's pride and joy, which is the yellow pepper paste, which we have shown you a few times how to make. So and then we have some garlic, salt, pepper, water, and some refreshments or some beer that's going to be part of the cooking process. So don't worry, I'm not gonna, well, I'll probably taste a little bit, but anyway, so I'm going to show you some stuff here. And then we have the chicken. So the chicken is bone in, and we have some chicken thighs that were on sale, so that's why I bought them. So I just removed some of the skin out, and normally in soups you just throw the chicken in there, but I saw this cool chef from Peru doing this, so I'm copying him. He browned the chicken a little bit, and also that flavors your pot, and then we're going to saute everything else in there. So we're going to season the chicken, but we're going to do that at the end. So see, notice I'm not really touching the chicken. I'm going to show you this part, and then I'm going to show you how we season the chicken, which is very simple. And then we're going to brown the chicken, and we're going to finish our soup on that universe over there. So alright, so we went over our ingredients. Now we're going to make sort of the base for the soup, which has the cilantro and the onion. And normally for a soup, if you're going to add onion, you're going to have to spend some time and chop it really fine. But I think I mentioned that already, but just in case, because I forget, I saw somebody doing this, so I'm using his trick. So basically he threw in the onion into the blender. You're not going to do this. We're still going to have to peel it and chop it up a little bit, so that's what we're doing. I'm going to cut it in half and then cut the ends off so it's easier to peel. And then I saw, I think it's Rachel Ray that always works with a little trash can or a little vessel in her station, so she can just do this. So Rachel, if you're watching, I think I've mentioned you before, so I think it's time for you to comment on the videos. So we're going to peel this, and then we're going to throw it in the blender. So I don't want to flavor this with a lot of, I'm not going to add oil or anything like that, or any spices in here, because we're going to do that on the pot. So in order to not make your blender suffer too much, we're going to add a little bit of water, because water is probably a very underrated ingredient, and it helps you a lot because it doesn't add flavor, but it helps you cooking things in a smoother way, I guess. It slows down certain cooking processes, and in this case, it's going to help me blend this. So as you can see, I'm just kind of breaking up the onion a little bit, and then we're going to add 2 bunches of cilantro. So if your supermarket sells this in those little fancy containers, then maybe this is the time to venture out and go to the supermarkets that have it in bunches like this, because it's going to be cheaper. So 2 bunches is about, here in LA, is about $1 for 2. So one thing is that they come and they come tight together with this rubber band that thankfully is not green, so you can see it, but you want to make sure that you remove that. So we're doing that on this one and that on this one. So we're just going to take the rubber band out, otherwise you're going to be chopping that along with your food. And then in this dish, we are going to use everything, which means the stem and the leaf, because everything has flavor, and we're blending this. So I'm going to put this in here. This blender has been with me for a long time, and it's not a very good blender, but I feel bad about getting rid of it. So I'm going to help it with the water right now, and then I'm going to add more ingredients to it. So I'm going to just add some of the cilantro and the onion in there, and we're going to start blending. Come on. Okay, we got the blender to work, so we're going to add the rest of the cilantro. And maybe even that, I'm just going to add half of it first, and then see if I need to add more water. So it's nice and thick. I'm going to add the rest of the cilantro and maybe just a tiny splash of water. We haven't added any salt and pepper, don't worry, we're going to season this as we go. And that's it. So that saved you all the time of chopping all this stuff up. And the next thing I wanted to show you, actually, the sort of the consistency of this, because you want it, and if you added more water, it's fine. You're going to evaporate it when you cook it, but you want to keep it a little bit on the thick side. So that's what we want right here. We're going to cook this in the pot behind me, but I wanted to also show you what we do to the chicken. So, oh, and before I forget, we're going to save just a little bit of this mixture, because when we finish our soup, when we're almost done with our soup, we're going to add it. And because when we cook the cilantro, it's going to lose a little bit of that bright green color, and this is going to help us bring that back. So keep this here, and then we have our chicken, which are chicken thighs, and we're going to just salt them, and we're going to put a little bit of cumin in them. So I removed some of the fat, like I mentioned, and this is just going to be salt. And I'm going to just sprinkle it because I don't want to touch the salt with the fingers that already touched the chicken, and then the cumin. And that's basically it. I'm just going to bring that to the pot, so I'm going to show you everything when we go back to the kitchen. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, here we are. We're going to broil our chicken for our soup. So we have one of this cool pots, Dutch oven things, or whatever you have at home that's thick, that works for you. And then I'm going to add a little bit of oil to the bottom of it. Not too much, because the thighs have a good amount of fat in them, so it's not going to, its own fat is going to render and separate things. So I'm going to go skin down once this gets up a little bit warmer. And remember, I'm just browning this, so we're going to finish cooking the chicken. So don't freak out if I pull out and you're like, oh, it's raw chicken. It is raw chicken at that point, but we're not eating it yet. We're going to eat it later. And once we eat it later, it's going to be once we add the liquid and it cooks for a while. So I'm just going to start putting the chicken, and some of them are smaller pieces, so I'm going to get those out of the way first. That's another important thing too. When you cook, you got to think of if you have certain things that are smaller, and you want to group them with things that are smaller. When you have something like a big potato that you're going to cook in something, that should go into the pot before you put something like peas or carrots, which you're going to see we're going to do that today. So it's not really planning, it's just kind of like common sense. So we're going to spread this out a little bit, let them cook for a little bit, and I actually have room. So as I'm going, I realized, okay, I think I can brown all this chicken at once. Even though I told you that the little ones are going to come out, are going to go in a group, they're still in a group, so I'm just going to pull them out first. So now I'm going to go in there with the rest of the chicken, since I have the room. And remember, this chicken has a little bit of salt and a little bit of cumin, and I'm putting things skin side down. And I have one more. And that should be good. I'm going to crunch up heat a little bit. I'm gonna rinse my hands because I just touched raw chicken. So I'm not removing the fat that came out of the chicken. I'm going to use that to cook everything else that's going to come in here. Now I'm going to add my aji paste, the yellow pepper paste that we make at the restaurant and here. I'm going to add probably about 1 tablespoon. It's not supposed to be a spicy soup, but it's definitely a flavorful soup. So I'm going to get my trusty wooden spoon. Move it around. This is already a cooked pepper, so we already cooked it. So we're just going to let it run for maybe another 20 seconds. And then in here, we're going to add our mixture, which is the cilantro mixture. That's going to go in right now. And we're going to let that cook for a good 2 or 3 minutes. At this point, we're going to start flavoring things. So we're going to add garlic. We're going to add the rest of the cumin. We're going to add some salt. So this is the rest of the cumin. We're going to add some of our garlic right now. And then the salt. And a little bit of pepper. Another thing that I like doing it, so if you're doing this at home, you can add water to it. So basically, you know, a soup's going to need some sort of liquid. So instead of adding water, what I made was just a basic chicken stock. I believe we've shown you how to make that here. So you want to get a couple of pieces of chicken. If it's going to be a broth and you want to use chicken breast, you can do that. And then you flavor your chicken stock with, you know, onion, celery, carrot is the traditional way. You can throw in a bay leaf or some peppercorns in there. So that's what I have here back in here. But water is just fine. There's a lot of flavor going on in here. You could make this a vegetarian or a vegan soup if you just skip the chicken altogether and do, you know, butternut squash or things like that as well. Because the cumin and the cilantro is really what is going to carry all the flavor of the food. So of this soup especially. So we're going to cook the cilantro mixture probably for another minute or so. And then we're going to start adding our ingredients that are going to cook a little bit longer, like the rice and the potatoes and the chicken. And then we're going to add the water, and towards the end, we're going to add the corn and the peas. So I think we're almost there. I'm going to test and taste this mixture to check it out for salt. And cilantro is very interesting because it's got a very aromatic, perfumey taste when it's raw, and then it goes through a stage when you cook it. At this point, which is not quite where I want it to be, it's going to have a little bit of a bitter taste. So we want to cook that bitter taste off, and it's going to change. It's very bright green, and as I don't know if you can tell, but it's going to take it into a more like dull, deeper color green, but doesn't have as much brightness. And that kind of tells you too that the cilantro is cooked and that some of those flavors are going away. At this point, we're going to add about half a cup of beer, maybe a little bit more. You want to add enough beer that you can taste it in the soup, and you want to always have a little bit left for the chef. So it's 6 in the morning here in California, and I'm already drinking a beer. All right, so as this cooks down, we're going to let it go for another minute, minute and a half, and then we're going to start adding all our other ingredients. See you guys soon. So our cilantro mixture is right there, and I can tell because of the flavor. So if you tasted it towards the beginning of it, and then in the middle, and then what it tastes now, it sort of goes back to that gentle taste. And it took longer than I thought. It took about 12 to 15 minutes. So be a little bit patient, because that's gonna, if you pull the trigger too fast and start adding things when it has that bitter taste, then your soup's gonna be a little bit better. So I'm adding the chicken that's partially cooked, and I'm putting it, the big pieces on the bottom. Those are gonna take a little bit longer to braise. And then I'm adding the smaller ones in there. And then this wonderful liquid that came out of the chicken as we let it sit, of course, we're going to add that in, right? I wish I had more of that stuff. So once we're there, I'm just going to make sure that our chicken is all submerged in there. And then we're going to start adding the rest of the ingredients, starting with the things that are going to take a little bit longer to cook, like the potatoes. So we're going to add potatoes, and we're going to add some of the carrots, and we're going to add the bell pepper. In this case, orange, in Peru, red, but really a bell pepper, orange bell pepper, or red bell pepper. I dare you to do a little blind test and tell me which one's orange and which one's red, because green pepper is different, but once they're yellow, red, and orange, the flavor profile is very similar. So we have all our stuff in there. Now we're going to add our rice, which is just raw rice, and it's going to thicken the soup. And then we're going to add our liquid, which is the chicken stock that we have made here. You want this soup to be, I think my mom, sorry about this, but I think she made it way too thick. So it became more of a rice dish than a soup dish. It's delicious, but I think I want to make it somewhere in between. I've seen some stuff on TV where it's very soupy with a little bit of rice. I like to see the rice, but I still want a good amount of broth. So that's what I'm aiming for here. And you won't really know because the rice is going to thicken things up. It's going to, triple its volume. So I think I did good. I pulled back a little bit on the rice, so we'll adjust the recipe for you. So I think it said 1.5 cups. We're going to do about a cup. So now the last thing I want to do at this point is give it another taste. I think it's pretty good already. So because we added the chicken stock, so that has flavor to it. So now I'm going to lower the heat to about a medium to medium low. We're going to cover it, and we're going to let it cook almost, or actually completely all the way. And then we're going to add our peas and our corn, which is just basically warming them through. And then I'm going to come here to the counter, and we're going to taste some good soup. See you guys soon. Welcome back to our soup episode where we make this awesome green cilantro chicken and rice soup. So the soup's been cooking for a while. The last thing I want to do is add a little bit of that I guess sort of pesto-like cilantro mixture with the onion and the water, just because I wanted that extra punch of cilantro flavor in it. So I'm going to bring the soup over here so you guys can take a look at it. The whole process took, I'm going to guess, about 45 minutes or so, a little under an hour. And you got to make sure that your potatoes are cooked and that your rice is cooked. And as you saw, I added the peas and I added the carrots towards the end. You feel so cool talking with this glove on. I feel like LL Cool J. Anyway, so here's our soup. It's hearty. It's a meal in itself. So I want you to think of it as a meal. That's what we're doing today. We're making it the meal of the day. And then in Peru, we traditionally squeeze a little bit of fresh lime juice in it. So that's kind of what we're going to do. And I now understand what my mom's was a little bit thick because rice just puffs up so much. So I had to cut back on the rice like you saw. And it's still thick, but it's kind of like where I want it to be. So I want to get a good amount of broth. And I also want to get a good amount of all those nice veggies and chicken in there. So I think that's a good, maybe a little bit more, a good enough portion for me. Remember, this is a meal. This is not like my first course or anything. And then we're going to get a piece of chicken. Be there. And if you want it a little more hearty, then, grab a little more rice, add more potatoes. I might add a little bit more rice to my serving right here. And it smells great. It's very, once again, if you don't like cilantro, then this might not be the thing for you. Also, I wanted to mention it again. This will be an awesome vegan soup. All you have to do is take out the chicken and make yourself a nice broth of veggies and add, if you want to do it like butternut squash or pumpkin or something for even more of a hearty kind of thing to it, then you can do it. But the cilantro flavor, the cumin, the garlic, the onion all carry the soup very well, and the lime also really helps. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of lime squeeze in there. I think I have a spoon ready to go. And just a little bit of that. And then this is the point, I guess, where I show you what it looks like when Luis eats soup. So we have this going on here. And it's great. It's got, you know, the carrots, the corn, the peas, and the rice. And I want to get a little piece of chicken in there. Make sure your chicken, you know, the chicken now has been cooking for over 45 minutes, so it's definitely cooked. And it's hot, so it's going to be hot in my mouth, but also delicious. I'm going to push that carrot with my finger in there. Then we're going to taste it. It's really good. It's because of all my years living here in LA, I've gotten so used to eating great Mexican food. So it brings you back to that, even though it doesn't have tomatillo in it, but it has that green chile verde kind of flavor to it without being chile verde. So, and it doesn't have the pork, it has the chicken, but it's hearty, it's great. It isn't hard to make. And the thing that we did different, to remind you, is that we browned the chicken thighs instead of just throwing them in with the water. So I truly hope you make this at home. It makes for a great meal. I'm going to give it to my kids when they come from school today. And I would love to see you here back at a seat at my table. This is Chef Luis Sanchez checking out. Thank you.